Hey, what's up guys? I'm David McVandy and welcome to my iPhone 10 review. Now this phone is pretty expensive. I think the base model is starting at $999 American, so it's a very expensive phone. So first things first, let's get to the technical specs. This phone comes in two different storage models. The first is 64 gigabyte, and you can also get the larger 256 gigabyte phone. The version I have is a 64 gigabyte. If you're an Android user coming to iPhone, know that this phone doesn't have upgradable storage, so whatever storage version you get, you're basically stuck with that. But you can use things such as iCloud and other cloud storage devices. The display is 5.8 inches. It's an OLED display, which I'll get to later. It's the first time Apple's ever featured an OLED display in any of their phones. It has a resolution of 2436 by 1125, which is just one of those weird Apple resolutions again. I gotta hand it to Apple and the way they calibrate their screens, because this screen looks awesome. Never mind the fact that they used an OLED screen, which I think are way better than LCD screens, especially on cell phones. Apple did a very great job of calibrating the screen. Now, I have always been a fan of Apple colors. Every time a new iPhone is released and I look at it, I'm always impressed by the color reproduction, and I'm a real fan of the way reds look on iPhones for some reason. I just think the iPhone produces darker reds than what's found on Samsung devices, and this screen is definitely bright, it's vibrant, and it is HDR capable, so if you have a Netflix account, you can watch HDR movies on this iPhone. Now this phone has two different color modes. One's called True Tone, and when you have True Tone turned on, the screen calibrates itself depending on what your environment you're in, and it's supposed to display truer colors, like accurate colors. And this is important if you do a lot of shopping online, because you want to make sure what you're looking at actually looks like that in real life. Say you're buying some red shoes, you want to make sure that the shade of red is actually the shade that you're gonna get, and that's where things such as Apple's True Tone display really makes sense. However, in my experience with it, I find it puts a greenish tone all over the screen, and I'm just not a fan of that greenish tone, so I turned True Tone off. I think whites look better without True Tone turned on, so that's just my preference. It's good that Apple gave you that option. So besides the screen, you also get stereo speakers, and the speakers are actually really great on this phone. They're probably the best speakers I've ever heard on a smartphone. I'm not sure if the following is going to do the speakers justice, but this is how good they sound. So the speakers definitely get an A+, especially since I'm coming from a single speaker Galaxy Note 8. I wish all phones could have this stereo speaker system. So this phone doesn't have a fingerprint sensor. Instead, Apple decided to go with Face ID exclusively. And even though Face ID works very well, I tested it in several different settings with low light and bright light and outdoors and indoors, and it worked 95% of the time. So I think it is a very secure and very well calibrated biometric security system. I still wish that Apple would have included a fingerprint sensor as well, just so you have more options. And because of the technology that comes with the Face ID sensors, you can do cool gimmicky things like animojis. And my thoughts on animojis is that I will never use them. I'm just not a fan of animojis. You might be. I think it's gimmicky and it's not something I would use. It was fun playing around with it, and again, I gotta hand it to Apple with how accurately these animojis can pick up every little nuance in your facial expressions. I just don't see it as a very useful thing. This phone also has Apple's A11 Bionic chip, and if you've seen the benchmarks, then you know that this chip is a beast. It beats out anything currently available in Android. And after using this phone for a week, I can say that this is a very fast phone. Never mind that it only has 3 gigabytes of RAM backing it up. Everything is very optimized. Like, there's a smoothness there that you won't find in Android. All the Android users who use an iPhone will probably know what I'm talking about. The user experience is very polished on an iPhone, more polished than anything you'll find on Android. Of course, since this phone has a beautiful display and a fast processor, I decided to play some video games, so I downloaded Bullet Force, and not surprisingly, it ran the game with ease. The game opened very fast, and it was just a pleasing experience getting to play this game with no hiccups or interruptions at all. The camera comes in at 12 megapixels, and this is one of the best cameras I've ever used. For example, playing around with portrait lighting was very cool, and I think Apple's portrait mode is better than the Galaxy Note 8. The background looks blurrier, and it does a better job of separating the subject from the background. Also, I like the fact that you can shoot 4K video at 60 frames per second. Even though I don't shoot in 4K very often, I would like to have the capability to slow down that 4K footage from 60 frames to, say, 24 frames per second if I did choose to shoot in 4K. This phone has a 2716 milliamp hour battery, and I didn't get to test the battery too much, but just using it on a regular basis, this phone lasted more than a day. So I can say that the battery is very efficient, and again, it's optimized with the software and the hardware, so this phone has very good battery life. The battery also has fast charging capabilities, but for some reason Apple doesn't include a fast charger in the box, so if you want fast charging, you'll have to pay extra. However, it does support wireless charging as well, so if you already have a Qi wireless charger or a fast Qi wireless charger, then you can throw this on no problem and you can charge your phone. And because this phone has wireless charging capabilities, the back is actually made of glass, so the design is very similar to what's found on Samsung phones now, with the all glass finish and the aluminum on the sides. It is pretty slippery, and after using it for like 2 minutes, once you take it out of the box, you'll realize that it has fingerprints everywhere. So I recommend putting a case on the phone. The phone is also IP67 water resistant. Now that's still not up to par with Samsung. You can get the phone wet, so you can go in the shower with it or something like that. So it's a good feature that Apple added, because it's about time, Apple. Now, as someone who is an Android user, there's definitely some things that I couldn't stand about this phone. For one thing was when I wanted to get into the camera settings, instead of being able to access the settings in the app like I can on my Galaxy Note 8 or other Android devices, you actually have to exit out of the app and go into the settings and then change whatever the video mode or the picture quality mode that way, and then re-enter the app. I think that's very inefficient. For a company that prides itself on making a very simple, easy to navigate product, that is anything but simple. I also wish there were more ways to access the home screen, such as pressing harder on a point on the screen, kind of like the Galaxy Note 8. At the moment, the only way you can access the home screen is if you can swipe from the bottom. It's just those little inconveniences that kind of bug me over time. This is definitely the best phone Apple has ever made, and it's been a pleasure using it. I have very little to complain about this phone, except maybe the notch, but what are you gonna do? Now, could I recommend this phone and say go buy it? I don't know. If you want the best iPhone out there at the moment, then yes, go buy it. However, if Apple does release 4 new phones this year, and one of them or 2 of them or something is rumored to be exactly like the iPhone X except with a bigger screen, then it might be better off to wait. However, if you can't wait, then this phone is definitely better, in my opinion, than the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, and it has certain features which aren't found on the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, such as the OLED screen, Apple's Face ID, the fact that both cameras are optically stabilized, and cool camera features such as portrait lighting. So this phone definitely does have a lot to offer, and it offers more than the other iPhones out there right now. So I'm not going to say go buy it or don't buy it. I'm just going to say that this is the best iPhone out there and I had a great experience with it. And that's it, guys. Thanks for listening to my review. I hope that helped you in making a buying decision. If not, I just hope that you enjoyed the video. Thanks to all my subscribers. If you're not a subscriber, then definitely consider subscribing. If you enjoyed the video, then hit the like button, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.